Or recording and streaming.
Is there anyone from the public? We're just waiting for a few members to join so that we can have a quorum. Thank you for your patience.
Aaron, can you confirm that you're hearing us? Okay.
Confirmed.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
We're recording.
Okay.
We'll see. On the Alkins and the-
Yeah. New York City traffic. Thank you. You're waiting on something?
Let's do this in person.
Yeah.
We're moving backwards. So you can send it to that.
That's bizarre. Shows that your name is that.
What?
Shows that your name is that.
We do? Eight? Okay, yeah. Who do we have online? Just Aaron. Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Vicky.
What's up? No, it's in. Oh, okay. Okay. 1 second. Craig is on his way. I will start the meeting and I'll give for the record, what we are, what we do, and why we're doing what we're doing. So this is the executive committee of CB5. We meet once a month for the purpose of being apprised of by each committee chair of the actions and or discussions that have taken place at the committee level. And that leads us to our main purpose, which is to form and finalize the agenda for the full board meeting. Members of the public are encouraged to attend remotely and then sign in as an attendee. There he is. Hi, Craig. We get started. So if anyone is coming on later on and would like to address the committee this evening, the comments will be taken up at the end of the business session. We always encourage members of the public to address the full board meeting at our public hearings. So we seldom take action, but tonight, on rare occasions and in emergency situations, we do. And tonight we will be voting on 3 applications. So since we have our quorum, I'll start the meeting with the committee moving into the business session, where only members of the committee will be recognized during discussion. So to just explain for the record, the city's last emergency order was related to COVID and expired on June 20th, with community boards having to operate fully in person or in a hybrid format going forward. Quorum must be achieved by members attending in person, and with the late notice of summer schedules, the T&E committee met but was unable to officially vote on the matters before them due to a lack of an in-person quorum. The public was informed of the meeting, and the committee members did meet with the applicants, and resolutions were recommended for official votes to be taken by this committee. So EJ, I'd like you to give us an overview of the T&E committee's findings regarding the applications vetted on June 22nd, and then I'll take questions and comments from exec members, followed by the committee voting on the proposed resolutions, which will be going to the full board on Thursday evening. So you are on, EJ.
Sure. Thanks, Vicky. There were 3 bus stop applications that the committee heard at our committee meeting. a quorum. T&E has 15 members on T&E, only 7 were physically in attendance, with 1 attending virtually, which is why we did not achieve a quorum. But the 8 members who were in attendance altogether did end up voting on consensus positions that we're bringing to the executive committee tonight. And I'll go through the 3 and explain our rationale.
Okay.
The first application was by Unique Global Travel LLC for an intercity bus stop on the east side of Madison Avenue between 26th Street and 27th Street. This, as I said, was an application for an intercity bus stop, as has been our precedent for many months at this point. We looked at the specific location that was provided to us, recommended to us by DOT, and the schedule of pickups and drop-offs that DOT says they are preparing to license the applicant for. We held a hearing for any members of the committee or any members of the public in attendance to make any comments on the particular application and schedule. And then our goal is to characterize the community feedback along the lines of no significant objection to the specific location by DOT, or to characterize any significant concerns raised by the community during the hearing. As far as this first application goes, Unique Global Travel. Unique Global Travel, the letter provided to us by DOT noted 1 stop on Madison Avenue between 26 and 27, and noted a schedule of 3 daily pickups Monday through Sunday, 7 a.m., 8 a.m., and 4 p.m., and 3 daily drop-offs Monday through Sunday, 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and 1:30 a.m. The location is currently marked no standing, would be shared with Executive Coach Inc. and an MTA bus line, BXM4C. And this is an intercity bus with bringing in commuters from Ithaca. The applicant pointed out to us that 21 pickups a week and 21 drop-offs a week, which is what DOT was preparing to license them, was not what they asked for. Essentially, they only do 1 or 2 trips to the city a week and 1 or 2 pickups from the city a week, mostly depending on demand and with kind of variable timing. 1 or 2 days a week, they may be picking up at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. in the morning, or depending on demand at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And they may be dropping off at 6 or 7 p.m. at night or 1:30 a.m. depending on demand. They had not, as far as we know, explained this to DOT, and DOT, as far as we know, did not have a conversation with the applicant to ascertain whether or not they actually wanted 21 pickups and 21 drop-offs a week, which they don't intend to operate. After learning all this, the committee essentially had no problems, and we heard no negative comment from the community at all on the applicant's intended schedule of 1 to 2 pickups a week and 1 to 2 drop-offs a week, and the location seemed fine. The committee had significant concern with what DOT seemed like they were prepared to license the applicant for, because the applicant wasn't asking for it, and we foresaw a lot of complication, potential abuse, if, say, the applicant decided that they had this capability and decided to scale up just because they were licensed for it, or if the license fell into the hands of a different operator, or if the applicant was at some point acquired by a different operator who then decided to ramp up their service. So that's a convoluted way of explaining that. We pointed out in our application that we had no serious objection to the way that the applicant was saying that they wanted to operate 1 to 2 pickups and 1 to 2 drop-offs a week. But we had serious concern with what DOT was prepared to put out in the world in terms of licensed pickups and drop-offs without seemingly any operator asking for them, and the potential for abuse of those orphaned licenses going out into the world. So with all of that characterization, we found significant concern with what DOT was proposing. And the 8 members in attendance supported this position 8-0.
Our concern at the time was whether or not, just what you explained, whether or not DOT could and would do what you just described on those extra 21 stops. We have no way of knowing whether they will or they won't.
According to their letter, which took the usual form, they were preparing to license all of those.
All of them.
Yes.
So even this operator could do that.
Yes.
Okay, any questions? It's really troubling.
Did DOT offer any explanation as to their process and their thinking?
DOT was not in attendance.
And if they'd been, I doubt if we would have had an answer. I'm getting terribly cynical.
It's troubling that they were prepared to license something that the applicant wasn't even asking.
Yeah,
And, it seems like there might have been some kind of snafu along the lines of the applicant selecting all the possible times on the online form that they wanted to pick up. But the fact that DOT does no follow-up query with the applicant to find out if 21 pickups and 21 drop-offs per week are actually what they're asking for and actually necessary is pretty concerning. And it seems like this was about to get rubber stamped.
anybody have any other questions or concerns? I'm wondering.
I believe it's 8-0. We'll definitely check it out.
EJ, do you think,
But I think that's about to be superseded by the vote.
you think we should stick with the resolve of significant concern, or should it be even stronger? I'm trying to remember what the feeling was. I was at the meeting, but
We haven't. Along the period of time that we've been characterizing the feedback in this way, no significant objection or significant concern. I've always felt that we could have in our back pocket a characterization of significant objection.
yeah,
If it seemed like it wasn't just us, identifying a litany of concerns with the location or the schedule, but there was actually unanimous consensus around this should 100% be denied. We could, I think it would be a friendly amendment to adopt that language.
I mean, it seems to be based on my understanding of what took place at the meeting.
okay, let's hear from you guys. What do you think? Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's really, this one's problematic if we don't, yeah.
I just looked up the City Council Transportation Committee. It looks like Carlina is on it. I'm wondering if maybe we do some specific outreach to her office about DOT matter.
I'm definitely willing to do that. It's also a conversation that I've been trying to have at a deeper level with DOT and Ed Pinkar, to understand if there is any way that DOT can improve the very little information that we get for every bus stop. We know that applicants ask for up to 5 locations that they would be willing to pick up on, and then DOT either chooses one of them to recommend or rejects them all and chooses a 6th different place to recommend. The applicant doesn't get any rationale about which ones were rejected and which one was chosen, and we don't get any rationale about which ones were rejected and which ones were chosen. In the past, we would try to, if we didn't agree with their recommended location, we would spend hours trying to come up with a better location, only to learn afterwards that DOT had already rejected it because the applicant had already asked for it, but without any rationale for why they chose it, other than the standard boilerplate. We assessed it according to our other criteria and thought this other one was better. So there is a lot that we would like to see improved about DOT's process in the amount of information that they are providing us with. We have not really succeeded at that so far.
And I think it goes way beyond bus stops.
I was gonna say, I think it goes on to everything. They have been less responsive as the years have gone on. They have more responsibility and less responsiveness.
I mean, this, is going past this particular resolution, but maybe at some point we should take up a letter to Carolina and DOT asking for reform.
So great with me.
I think we should.
Everybody agree?
Yes.
Okay, and both of you are comfortable with our changing this. I don't want it to look as if we're doing something the committee didn't want, but I think they were following the usual process.
Yeah, and
I was not in attendance, so
the significant concern language was the language that we used throughout our conversation. And we haven't talked extensively about adding significant objection to our lexicon too much in the past. I can't imagine that anyone on the committee would have a real problem with the updated language, but
Okay.
and I would also add that the objection isn't, normally in that context, the objection would be to the stop or to the, to the location based on community concern. This is specifically about a request.
this is about process and schedule,
Right.
essentially. It's not about the location.
But this resolution is coming from exec.
Yeah.
So if we want to change. it,
Yeah, we
change it.
can, yes, absolutely. I just want to make sure that they're comfortable.
I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, okay. All right, so then it's just changing the word concern to object.
Significant objection. Community Board
Objection.
5 finds significant objection.
Everything else is. Yeah,
Yes, I would retain everything else, including the language in the resolve indicating Community Board 5 would have had no significant objection for the usage as actually requested by the applicant.
okay, so 2 changes.
No, that's, I'm simply saying I would retain that.
Oh, you would, okay,
Yeah, I would leave everything else.
yeah. Okay. All right, everybody's good with that. We'll vote after we go through. Didn't we have 3?
We did.
There are 3 here.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
The second application was by Dorama Tours Inc. Doing business as The Ride for 3 sightseeing bus stops. One on the east side of 8th Avenue between 39th and 40th. One on the north side of 42nd between 7th Avenue and 8th Avenue. And one on the north side of 45th between 7th Avenue and Schubert Avenue. The Ride, Dorama Tours Inc. doing business as The Ride, is a sightseeing bus operator requesting sightseeing bus stops on those 3 locations. Most notably, each of those locations was already the location of Experience the Ride, which was an operator that is now being taken over by the current operator. So this is a reissuance of 3 stops that existed in the past. The 8th Avenue location is currently marked no standing, is already licensed to Experience the Ride, which is no longer in service. The 42nd Street stop is currently marked no standing, is licensed to 3 operators, including Big Bus, Gray Line, and Experience the Ride formerly. And then the 45th Street location is currently marked no standing and was licensed to Experience the Ride. Again, no longer in service. So in all 3 locations, this was pre-existing service that is now being licensed to the successor company to the prior service. In all 3 locations, no comment or objection was raised by any members of the committee at our hearing. So with the caveat that we continue to call on DOT to create a comprehensive street use plan for sightseeing buses, as we always reiterate. We heard no significant objection to these specific locations. And we endorsed that position unanimously.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Anyone? Pretty straightforward. Yes, okay. And the next one?
The third and final one was D&J Service Inc., providing service for the East 34th Street Midtown Ferry Terminal. This is an application for 6 shuttle bus stops on Lexington and Madison Avenues between 38th Street to the south and 47th Street to the north. In a nutshell, this is a shuttle service contracted by the Midtown Ferry Terminal, which itself is contracted by the city to provide ferry service to the city. And this would be a licensing of 6 pickup and drop off locations for that shuttle service. Notably, the shuttle has been operating for several years already. And this would issue licenses to service that is already in service. There were no comments or objections from the community about these stops, probably because they're already in service and the community is already used to them. Because the shuttles operate absolutely free to riders, and because they are in service to the city's contracted ferry service operating out of the 34th Street Terminal, because there was, absolutely no objection from any members of the community about maintaining this service, because this service is already in effect, and because there would be no change to what the community is already experiencing. We really had no objection at all to the to this service. Again, unlike a lot of the bus stop applications that we get, this is not intercity service that's going to be picking up and dropping off on the streets, and it's not sightseeing service that's going to be picking up and dropping off on the streets. This is transit service intended to benefit the community, and which is already in effect. The one caveat we made sure to point out is that this should in no way be interpreted as any kind of implicit endorsement for the fact that we're just going to green light any service that has been operating without a permit in the past, if they come to us for, any kind of DOT licensure in the future. But, combining the situations of COVID, the fact that they're contracted to support city contracted ferry service in the city. In this particular case, we felt that there was no objection, once again, according to our precedent, to these 6 specific locations that DOT was prepared to license.
Do you remember how people find out about this? Did we ask? How do people know that it's free service? They have brochures or anything? I don't remember.
I don't remember exactly how they said they go about their advertising. Obviously, it would.
At the ferry?
Like when you're at the ferry, it's like,
Speak up.
so it's in a weird place, like the ferry's in a
Speak up
weird.
to me.
Oh, sorry, it's in a weird place. The ferry's in a weird place, like
Yeah.
it's sort of on the river on 34th Street. So
Right.
when you're there,
So
like,
they know
people
when
tell-
they,
I
when
mean,
they
people
get
tell,
off.
like, yeah, when you, like, people are just going, you're
Right.
kind of like, where does this boat go to? Where, that's how I found out. about it.
Certainly, when you're departing the ferry,
People tell
you
you.
would find out that you can pick it up at the terminal and take it into the central business district.
Yeah.
If you're using it to get to the ferry terminal, I assume that the way that most people find out about it is they plug it into their phone, their Google Maps or their directions, and it tells you that you can pick it up at one of these 6 locations, or indeed other locations in other districts as well.
Yeah, okay, good. Renee,
May I ask you a question? How did it come to, how did it come to you now? Why did it come to you?
We did not get information.
Like it just turned up on your docket? Like, why now?
That is exactly how things turn up.
on our
That
docket.
letter is very much needed. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so that's the three, and we can vote accordingly. We're gonna read the, sure, good, thank you.
Can we vote on these or no?
I do,
Okay, Vicky?
yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Yes.
Good.
And Brosnahan is yes.
Okay,
For the record, should she call the roll,
yeah.
or was that okay?
No, we should call the roll, since it's okay this time, but from now on, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about, which is the difficulties or complexities in having hybrid meetings now, where if you're viewing this from the public, you don't always know who's here.
Okay.
So it's good to have names. I mean, name tags wouldn't show up, so I think it's good to have roll, the roll call, so that people know who's been at the meeting.
You want to do that again? No?
Yeah, for the record,
Okay, Vicky?
Vicky Barbaro, yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Craig?
Craig Sluskin, yes.
Julie? Yes. Brosnahan is yes. Ford?
Yes.
Calafarsky?
Yes.
Kinsella?
Yes.
Lakisico?
Yes.
Sam Levy?
Yes.
And Mary.
And Mary. Brosnahan is yes, sorry.
Okay, good. Okay, there's a lot of things we're gonna have to get, back on track and used to. Which is, what I'd like to go over today. So we did the vote, let me check that. I did the intro, let me check that. Before I talk about what I just mentioned, let's talk about, information from Marisa regarding a new website. I don't know if you're all aware that we are in the process of getting a new website. Yay, yay, yay.
Yeah, so actually, EJ, right in front of you, there's a I would sell list, if you could just pass that around. So in front of you, you have a timeline for the development of the new website. We are moving from a sort of clunky, old-fashioned template to WordPress, which is much more user-friendly, much more flexible. The staff will have much more control over the formatting, what it looks like. Right now, we're really very limited with what we can do on our website and how we can present information and updating things. So we've begun the process, and what you have in front of you is the timeline, the sort of the draft timeline from the developer. The highlighted dates are when they really need our input for review. And so we are hoping that a couple of board members will join the staff in reviewing the site and helping us develop it.
Is there an electronic version that I can see?
So sorry, Aaron. I will forward it to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I can't do it right now, but I will get it to you as soon as the meeting ends.
So the basic design is this month, right?
Yes.
And then they want input from us on the 17th of August or
So
by
really towards the end of the month is when they really want to start
the end of July.
end of July, having some review from us on their initial creation.
Okay. All right, so we thought we would put together a small committee of, I'll work on it with Marisa and Nick and Craig, and we thought about if there's anyone on the board who's kind of savvy when it comes to this, and we looked at one of our new members as a possibility. Does anyone know of anyone on the board who is not just tech savvy, but maybe has dealt with websites or anything, just to have them be involved?
Well, we built one at the college.
Oh.
I don't know if it's- I mean, we used a vendor, but
Yeah,
it's a lot of interactive process to see people with different degrees of
yeah,
comfort, you know, how accessible and what you want foregrounded versus, you know, and how easy it is to get into the depth.
would you like to be a part of that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. We were thinking of, Mohit, who's a new member of the board. Take a look at his application, if any of you, I know all the chairs have it. I think it would be nice to include him. And, we'll work with Marisa on this.
One thing I would like to ask the chair is if they just want to take a look at their committee pages. And if there's any changes they want to make to the wording, any updates that they think are important to add, that aren't currently there. You can let me know that. This is a great opportunity to do that. Otherwise, we'll kind of be shifting content as it is.
Okay. Anybody have any thoughts or questions or comments? Delaney.
I think that creating links from our website to, for example, the Department of City Planning would be immensely useful. That's what comes to mind.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah, we really want to beef up the resources page so that it's an actual resource for folks.
Anything else?
There's those links that exist about, are you in our, on our board, like interactive maps? So that page that already exists might be good. Even though our boundaries are clear. But people like to type in their addresses, that's already exists in the city and state.
Yeah, we are really hoping to have some very interactive maps, so they can, maps that can lay over each other and show all the resources that are available in the district as opposed to this sort of just one static
Yeah.
geographic map
And who
that
the
we're showing.
electeds are,
Yeah,
that would be great. Because those overlap, obviously.
Anything else? Okay. All right, if you think about it in the next couple of weeks and anything comes up that a light bulb goes off, oh, this should be changed, or that should be added, or something doesn't need to be on, let us know, okay? Okay, so that takes care of the website. Next is something that we've talked about before, but I really need, actually, it's not me, but the board office really needs to know what tech support is going to be provided in the event that they are not available, and they will not be available at all the hybrid meetings. So we went over this once. Craig, you wanted to do your own,
Yeah, I can do it.
and Nick, you wanted to do your own. Right. But Renee and Layla wanted to think about it.
I mean, Julie kind of feels comfortable, but we kind of screwed it up, didn't we?
So Julie,
Yeah,
okay,
you feel?
It was just weird that night with the sound, but I don't think that's gonna be.
I think EJ, did you say you were gonna do your own?
I'll do it myself.
Okay, and Layla.
Sure.
No, I mean, do you have someone on the committee that you want to, I mean, the thought was maybe we put committee members, give them the task of doing it and give them a title.
What does it entail exactly?
Marisa?
Refresh my memory.
so it entails, so right now we're meeting in the district office, and as such, we'll have everything pre-set up for you. But, it entails troubleshooting during the meeting if there's any sound issues or visual issues. Running the actual Zoom portion of the meeting, right? Unmuting people, letting them speak. Because open meetings law really requires that people be seen and heard. If you're allowing an attendee to speak, you should promote them to panelist, let them turn their camera on. speak for their 2 minutes, and then they return to being an attendee. So you need someone to do that. It's a lot to think about if you're also trying to run a table. So it's nice to have somebody else to do that, rather than the chair who's trying to run the room.
Aaron, how do you feel about the requirements? Do you think that we would be able to manage between the two of us?
Yeah, I think it, I think we sort of, I mean, the first go around, right, you were virtual and I was there. So like I was checking it was really helpful to have a computer to have whoever's doing that part really needs a laptop to be able to like monitor the situation and do the promote, and especially if we want to have the public people on camera. Yeah, I think we got it covered. Yeah.
Yeah, and we did that, Aaron was there with me at Parks, and I controlled it from my computer, and I think, Aaron, you can tell me if you disagree, but I think it worked out for Parks. Okay.
Yeah, you were running the meeting and you had the laptop in front of you, and we had to run over to the computer and turn it off at the end. Yeah.
That's the one thing that I asked Catherine to press the end, but that was it.
You
I didn't feel like getting up.
Yeah, so Aaron and I
Okay.
will do it, and I'm confident that Brad and I will do it.
In the landmarks, okay, good. All right, so we're all set.
Julie and I will do it. The only concern that I have is that Julie and I ran into that issue. And when there is a troubleshooting, like with the volume, we hit a problem. And then, when it is a problem, as opposed to just promoting and all of that, then that's what I'm concerned about. Like if something goes down, then we have a problem, right? Because we don't know what to do, and we don't know what to do beyond sort of just promoting and.
Right, so early on, everybody received instructions on how to set up the owl. So, when you're troubleshooting, it would be about unplugging the owl, restarting it, repairing it. It's pretty easy. You just need to know it. So I'm very happy. Mike and I are very happy. If someone wants to come in a half hour early, we can just walk through the setup. We can create some problems and have you solve them.
Okay.
And just to get you comfortable with the technology.
Let me ask, disaster scenario. The thing goes down, can't get it for love or money. Julie and I are panic stations. Do we have to stop the meeting altogether? What happens in that scenario?
If you have quorum in the room, you do not have to stop the meeting, is my
Notwithstanding, if we have public on, what do we do?
You're looking at somebody who is so untech savvy, I can't even begin to tell you. I don't know why.
But I'm just asking about.
You
the
mean, what do you do
legal,
about the
like,
meeting?
Yeah,
It's their choice to attend virtually, I think is the
What's that?
assumption. It's their choice to attend virtually, but I guess their assumption is that the meeting will function.
Leila,
Actually, we urge them not to attend in person.
yeah, we do.
So I
Yeah.
think that
We recommend it.
we recommend that they do not, we will accommodate it, but really, we urge them to attend. And because I think that one of our main functions is actually to provide this introduction with the public for them. I know it's a good question. I don't know if this is gonna happen after tonight.
Nick.
In my case, my committee hears applications. If the system goes down, we lose the applicant. We can't proceed.
That's true.
It feels to me like this is gonna be the type of thing that we do get more familiar with, that we all get more familiar with over time. This month, we had 0 warning, and I think we really needed the training wheels. We're about to have a hiatus for a month and then come back and maybe still be very rusty on it. In terms of, it'll be the first time that we have hopefully full attendance by committees in the room.
Right.
And dealing with the full committee in the room and, first or second time in a lot of our cases, running the meeting from the room with all the monitors and the screen and the owls and all that stuff. So any training wheels that we might still be able to have from the board office for, I think, the September cycle will be extremely helpful. I suspect that going beyond that, we'll all start to get more comfortable and more familiar with the troubleshooting scenarios as we get into the October cycle and the November cycle.
Yeah.
But if possible, for one more cycle in end of August, beginning of September, is it gonna be possible for the board office to hold our hands through
Yeah, yeah.
through that process?
Going anywhere, we're not leaving anybody in a lurch, so.
I think if
No,
it
no
does,
worries.
just listening to the comments, I think if it does happen, you have to stop and fix it for the very reasons that both Leila and Nick mentioned in particular. EJ,
Well, I also wonder if in that kind of dire, all systems dying of the owls connected to the, you know, in-house technology, like I do wonder if there could be a backup scenario whereby I don't even know what might be most feasible, but we shut that down if it can't be saved, and we dial in from a phone, or we zoom in from a phone, or we zoom in from the chair's laptop. And although you won't have great audio, and although you won't see everybody else in the room, at least the chair could continue to conduct the meeting virtually. And everyone online would hear him, and everyone or her, and everyone in the room would hear the chair.
yeah,
And at least, it wouldn't be an ideal situation, but at least the committee could proceed. Like, I wonder if there's a way to put together a procedure whereby, in case of fire, we break that glass and just can
Yeah, I mean-
run the meeting from a single device.
Yeah, ultimately, this is a Zoom, right? This is a Zoom, forgetting about the owls, this is ultimately a Zoom. So if it doesn't work on that computer and you have a laptop, you can open up a Zoom on your own computer, as long as you have the passwords, which you'll do on your form.
Yeah.
So not ideal, as EJ said, but
We also have laptops here in the office. And we can just make sure that they're somewhere that you can access them so that more people can have laptops. In case of that situation, people who haven't brought theirs or don't have their phone. So you could distribute those and people could log in that way.
When we ran the T&E meeting, I was logged in as myself on my own laptop, just to be able to promote and unpromote people as a co-host as well. And I muted my audio and I muted my mic so that it wouldn't conflict with what was in the room, but I could run the meeting because I was a co-host. If the owls and the office computer and the whole situation connected to this room went down, it would have been very easy to just unmute myself and continue to conduct the meeting in that
are
fashion.
you
from my
guys
laptop.
okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
and just
Okay.
one other point, just in terms of personnel backup. Most of us are on each other's committees, so for parks, I have Aaron on the committee, and for, land use, you have most of us on the committee.
All of us.
So virtually all of us. So a lot of, there is more backup than just, like for you, it's more than just Aaron at your land use meeting, it's several of us, so.
So basically what we're saying is that we will never run the meeting unless we stop and make some kind of adjustment for those who are watching virtually.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, any questions or comments beyond what we talked about?
We can also just make sure everybody has Mike and I's cell phones so that,
Right.
if you're
That
feeling
reminds
like,
me, I do not have Mike's cell phone.
it just text and
Yeah.
we'll answer.
I need his cell phone. I keep
Okay.
getting to ask them. Okay. Okay, all right, then the last thing, I'm just gonna quickly mention this one. We're trying to put together mentors, but this is gonna be a little difficult. Not only in pairing up people, but how do we know? I just want you to think about this, because I don't think we're gonna do mentors for this meeting. We don't know who's coming in person. We don't know, in terms of the new people, and we also don't know who would be a mentor if they're coming in person. So we could set somebody up and they'd never be able to meet with them or have them, available for questions or comments. So I thought maybe we'd work on it over the month that we have off. Unless somebody comes up with a different scenario. Nick,
I think the mentor relationship is more than sitting next to somebody at the meeting. So you're concerned about who's gonna be at the meeting in person, who's not. You know, may not destroy the whole intent behind assigning mentors.
You know, the funny thing is that we set up mentors during Zoom. Nobody ever connected with anyone. Unfortunately, because you're right. You know, I wrote out, emails to them saying, email your mentor or send them a text if you have a question, and nobody did it. So it doesn't mean, what you're saying is something that I think people should be taking advantage of, because I'm sure they have questions. I mean, old timers have questions, so the new people must have questions. And it's so easy to just have someone that you feel comfortable, texting or emailing or even phoning.
We started the DEX assignments for budget.
Mhm.
New people are paired with old people, but we ask the new people what their interests are so that it's doing it that way.
Oh.
So to some extent, they have mentor. Well, a
Yeah.
team, but a mentor that way.
Yeah. Well, maybe over this summer, then I'll send out another notice to people saying, giving more of an explanation for what a mentor really is there for and what you should be using them for. Not just to sit next to them and give them a nudge as to what the heck was that all about, but a question that you may have on parliamentary procedure, which I'm going to talk about next, or bylaws or charter or and a particular resolution, how to vote or conflict of interest. I'm sure people have a question all the time. I have problems with people who are not saying they're conflicted when they should say they are conflicted. And the fact of the matter is, I as chair and all of you, we really don't have the right to question them according to the law. I mean, I think I could probably, in a very nice way, say, hey, but I couldn't in a meeting say, I'm sorry, you're conflicted and you're not saying that you are. Unfortunately, you can't do that, right?
But that's not a question for a mentor,
No,
right? That's a question that should go to you as the
Yeah.
chair or.
Well,
an
if they
officer,
have a
right?
conflict of interest,
But even
what
questions
they might
about
want to
it.
talk to the mentor about is the whole concept of conflict of interest, not that them
But
in particular.
Yes, but I still think in that scenario. Let's say they went to Samir, I'm just throwing out a name because he's been there for a couple of years. Samir is not equipped, and it's nothing against Samir, but Samir may not be equipped like you would be equipped to even talk about
Yeah,
that kind of a topic, or John Harris or
Yeah.
somebody like that, because they might not be in, it's just, they're not, they've never dealt
yeah,
with it.
that's true.
So
Yeah.
conflict of interest, I would not put as part of the mentor relationship,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I think that is definitely something that should go to you or you, me and Nick, or the committee chairs or something. That's a special thing.
Okay,
I think
the
that's,
only thing is, I
and I
agree,
know, there's limited to what we can do,
Yeah.
but that should be something we should explain.
I agree, I just think that if somebody's a mentor, they ought to be able to talk about it. But I hear what you're saying. I do.
I don't know.
That's another story. Okay, anything else on mentors? Any other thoughts or suggestions? No? Okay. Okay, last is parliamentary procedure. So we've been doing Zoom for 3 years. Everyone is identified when you're looking at a Zoom. Everyone has been wonderful about raising their hand and not cross conversations and yada, yada, yada. Now we're back to hybrids. And I've been observing. And I thought I would talk to the full board in a very nice way about the fact that we are supposed to be following parliamentary procedure, which means that starting off, you must be recognized by the chair. This is at a committee meeting and a full board. You are, I'm sorry, but you're not supposed to just blurt out or follow up a question without being recognized. That's number one. Number two, you must address the chair. All questions, all comments come to the person who's running the meeting. At a committee meeting, that's true. At a board meeting, that's true. At a task force, that's true. You have to have the conversation going to the person who's leading the meeting. And that does away with cross conversations. So even if people have a question of someone who just made a comment, the question comes forward. The question does not go to the person. You don't wind up with a whole cross conversation. So, yes.
Does
ma'am.
that include like when people are doing presentations and you're asking for questions for that presentation?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I just want to be clear.
Because what it does, if you don't, it gives the presenter the opportunity to go on and on and
Okay.
on and on.
Got it. That's good
So
to know.
it's up to the chairs to really rein that in. The other thing about parliamentary procedure is you're really not supposed to ask more than one or two questions. And people have a tendency now to have like a whole lineup.
Mhm.
And they'll start out with one and they'll say, oh, and as a follow-up to that, and then you're supposed to really be very aware of the fact that there are others at this meeting and give them a chance to either ask questions or comment before you go on to your second or third. So what I would suggest is, as chairs, when someone starts to do that, I would just say, we'll get back to you. I'd like to see if anyone else would, because sometimes someone just monopolizes the whole beginning of the conversation with 6 questions
Mhm.
and then 6 follow-up comments. So just keep that in mind. Those on remotely must have their cameras on. This is according to our guidelines and the open meetings law. It says must be identified and must be seen. So, you know, you hear me say all the time at the full board meeting, put those cameras on, and I understand if somebody has to get up and go to the job, which is true in a full board in-person meeting as well, but you come back and you sit down and you're seen and you're known. I have seen people now on committee meetings, it really makes my blood boil. They come into the meeting, they say hello, they're there for the roll call, and then their name is there for the rest of the meeting. I don't know if they went and had dinner, I don't know if they left the premises, I don't know. And neither does the chair of the committee. And the reason why I find it troubling is because when the roll call gets called, you don't get answers a lot. They're not there. And I think you have to take into consideration as chairs that if that happens, mark them present part. If they came in for part of it, even though they may come in for the vote, if they were there with their name on for most of the meeting, put them down as present part. The guidelines say seen and heard. Right.
And this might be more of a question for Marisa, but I'll ask you first. I know the rules just changed a little bit with accommodations for people, like if people have certain disabilities. Are there accommodations that state that you do not have to turn your screen on? Like, think of a couple of people who might, in our board, who may do that, who may not want to turn their screen on.
Yeah.
And is that allowed with certain accommodations? And that they have to ask?
Didn't I ask that today? And then she said, did I ask that of Kathleen? Kimberly?
So that would be a reasonable accommodation request to not have your camera on, but be considered in full attendance for the entire meeting. Now it's up to the board to decide how they want to review, what the process will be to review those requests, but it would be a reasonable accommodation request and the board could provide it or not, depending on the circumstances.
Layla.
What would be the reason that would justify renting such request?
Well, like with Charles. This is blind, I think I'm sorry.
That's okay. What was your answer?
I thought, for instance, Charles, because he's visually impaired.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that would be an exceptional request that will be accommodated.
I'm not
Not,
sure. I'm
not
not sure I-
necessarily.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
That would be a request,
Right.
yes.
That's where I'm
yes,
getting,
but the
that's my
question
question is,
is-
what is it?
Do we accommodate them?
Okay, well, I guess we probably deal with that when it comes up.
Yeah, we are
Let's
going
answer it
to,
today.
as long as you brought that up, we're going to have to put together a policy.
Yeah, I
And Nick and Craig and I have talked about it. And Marisa, did you want to say something about it?
Yeah, just in terms of reasonable accommodation requests. You can have a set policy for the process by which they're assessed or an accommodation request is made. But part of the law is that each reasonable accommodation request has to be judged on its merits alone. So you can't just have a blanket policy that applies to all reasonable accommodation requests. You really have to judge each one individually.
And we have to have the policy so that we make sure we treat everyone the same. But that's a good question about being seen. I asked that question. I
Right.
don't know if I got an answer. I don't think I got an answer, but
No, we didn't hear an answer.
No.
But we're in the process of having that dialogue.
Okay.
With that member.
because your point is well taken. What would be the reason? If someone wants to come to the meeting in person, then why wouldn't they want to be seen on the screen as well? Right?
Well, I just, sorry. I just know during the interview process that Todd had brought up the issue of bandwidth and that he travels a lot.
Mary, talk this way.
Okay, I was just saying, referencing an interview that Renee was part of,
Uh-huh.
and Todd said that he thought that people should consider bandwidth because he's traveling and he is not always able to do video. So I'm just putting that out there, that that's somebody who has voiced some consideration before.
But Todd has to be here in person. He's a board
Talk
member.
to me.
Todd has to be a board member,
That's right.
unless he's excused.
Yeah. Yeah. See those are things that we're going to, as Marisa said, I think we are the ones that have to examine them after we put together a policy. So that we're treating everyone
Fairly.
equally and fairly, yeah. Right?
Mhm.
Right,
And ultimately, whether people like this or not, the law is the law.
Yeah.
The open meetings law is the open meetings law.
Mhm.
If it's not convenient, it doesn't make a difference if it's convenient or not. The law is the law, and there's very specific rules as to what we can and cannot do. And if people are not comfortable with it, if people are not, and if they have to leave the board, I hate to say it, but they may have
Yeah.
to leave the board. We can only do what we can do, and if people have concerns about it, they can lobby their state assembly person,
change the law,
and they can lobby their state senator, because that's it's at the state level.
yeah. Sam,
So I had similar concerns and I also agree with that. And I guess one of the questions is as we grow up post-pandemic, whether that's something that the board itself would consider lobbying about. I don't even know if that's technically okay, but I guess the second question is on the question of reasonable accommodation being excused from being in person and thus being on your phone and therefore potentially using a lot of bandwidth and having to turn it off to keep the ability to turn it on during a vote. I guess my question is there a world in which you can turn on your camera for the vote to be considered, would that be considered meeting the law if you are being seen at voting time?
I don't think that meets the law right now, no. Renee and then EJ.
I think reasonable accommodations purely to disabilities as opposed to anything else. So it's not running to what we're talking about with Todd. I think
Yeah.
reasonable accommodation is
Right.
disabilities. I think you're talking about something.
Yeah.
So just
Wait, EJ was next.
Well, I was just gonna say that, yes, setting aside any disability situations. we can set our own bylaws and our own attendance rules.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
So whereas in the past, you know, more than three unexcused absences where you didn't show up in person meant we could eject you from the board.
Right,
Now we can say, you know,
you've got an advantage now because.
now we can
come in
say,
remote.
well, okay, three situations where you weren't either in person or have your video on mean we can eject you, we can vote to eject you from the board. And it's us trying to make sure that we as a board are in compliance with the open meetings law. And that policy, in fact, would still be more permissive than what we had before
Exactly.
COVID, which is to say that you needed to be there in person. Now you can need to be there in person or with, in limited circumstances,
Right,
you can be somewhere else, but you still need to have the bandwidth to be on video.
right,
And if you can't be there, if you don't have the bandwidth to be on video, then frankly, you can revert back to the, pre-2020 rules, which were you needed to be in person anyway
Right.
to be a functioning, participating member of the board.
Sam,
No, I think that actually probably clarifies. I think where I'm getting a little confused is to the how it becomes, again, if the expectation is that we are in fact going back to meetings in person, in what world does a Zoom attendee from the board actually meet any sort of criteria other than just because they can't add to the quorum?
well, that was my question recently. I said, what is the incentive for someone to come on if they're gonna be counted as absent and can't vote? But they, when you read the guidelines, I don't know, I found it a little confusing. Craig, I know you tried to,
Yeah, and just as a reminder, we have those rules in place. We've passed a resolution about a year and a half ago. Based upon a task force that we had several people, Tristan was in it,
yeah,
that said, you have to come in person, but you can do a couple of virtual meetings, but we put a limit on that because otherwise. Everybody will take advantage of it and we'll never have anyone in person. And it says in there, it mirrors the language of the open meetings law, that you have to have your screen on, you have to have your camera on. That's literally, we took that word for word. So we do have that on there. And in terms of your question, the incentive to somebody doing it with the camera off or not counting for attendance was they still would, if they still want to be part of the conversation, they can be part of the conversation. It's just going to count, they're going to be dinged for it
yeah.
from the attendance perspective.
Mhm.
Because that's the only way we can manage all of this.
Things may change as we go along, and
Yeah.
we want to amend those guidelines.
Of course.
I would like to suggest that if it's a pretty involved topic, that maybe we either create some group to focus on it or maybe deal with it at another time because I want to be mindful of the time. It's already 6:05 and we haven't gone through the.
Yeah. It is very complicated. What do you think, Craig? Should we put together like a subgroup to,
I think,
the thing is, we should look at like one or two meetings.
Right,
and
that's what
see
we-
how they go.
we had talked about this
Yeah.
last week, I think, of seeing, let's just go through a couple of cycles and see how it goes and what,
Yeah,
because there may be other problems that we don't.
that we're not
foresee.
even thinking of, EJ.
Just as a final word on it, we might not even need to change the policy. It might just be a question of messaging
Mhm.
and pointing out that even though there's a little bit of lenience, even if you don't have a disability or an accommodation, you're expected to be here in person the vast majority of the
Mhm.
time. So I wouldn't, you may have the ability to explain to the board here, you shouldn't be trying to figure out how to game the system or,
Mhm.
be phoning in, half the time or anything. That's not the intent of these rules. You're expected to be here in person
Right,
all the time, unless you have a disability or an accommodation.
okay. All right, so we'll go maybe till October, because this is July, then we'll do September, October, maybe after the October meeting. We'll have, we'll go over what, and this is true also for committee meetings and then as well as school board, and you'll all be kind of have your antennas up for how things are working out with those that are coming in remotely versus those that are in person. Okay. That was the last on that. We can now go to our committee reports. You want to go first?
I'm okay, we can go in the order that it is.
Okay, let me go to the, let's see what we have on our. We have parks first, so let's go with that.
Yep. So we have one item on the agenda. This is an application from the Madison Square Park Conservancy for. Layla will say it for me because this is in French and I'm not.
I
I'm
know,
going to
I was
completely
looking
butcher.
at this.
I'm going to completely butcher the pronunciation, so.
Fête du Féline, which
Thank you.
means nothing, it's grammatically incorrect.
But it's by Fancy Feast of Cat Food. It's a marketing event in Madison Square Park on August 7th and 8th. And just as a reminder, under the contract with the city, the Conservancy can have 4 marketing events a year. That's how they fund their operations. This is the first that they're having for the entire year. They are having problems finding marketing events. So that actually it is a big problem for them because it does impact how much revenue they bring in, which impacts how many events and how many events they can have. They have a lot of free events and upkeep and all of that. So this is a concern, but this is one out of the first out of 4 for the year. And what this is, if you look on pages 4 and 5 and 6, they're setting up a little station where they're going to have free food tastings to the public, similar to like a garden party. The menu will include human food inspired by their various lines of cat food. So this is edible for human consumption. The food is going to be mostly cooked off-site. There's going to be an electric back house kitchen. There's going to be food distributed on both days, beer and wine to the VIP to a VIP section. Just on the first evening. So the first evening, August 7th, is 5 to 6:30. It's a VIP section and session, and then general public on the 8th. And just so you know, August 8th is International Cat Day. So I'm sure we will all be celebrating. Within the activation, there'll be a meet and greet with a cat ambassador, a cat nutritionist, calligraphy and engraving, an Instagram wall, and a cat characterist and portrait artist. They will be giving away tote bags. They are going to have extra trash bags and dumpsters. There'll be some background music, nothing too bad. They expect to have about 700 participants over the course of the activation. They'll bring in their own generators. Fortunately, they will be powered by either diesel or gasoline. And signage was reasonable. Any filming of the events, which include the public, they will actually have written releases, which is something that we're always concerned about. Overall, this was fine. It's certainly different. It does cover a couple of days, but relative to other events, this is fairly reasonable. So the committee approved this 14,000.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Can you let us in on the?
How can you even give this presentation?
Yes, I mean, it's a marketing event for Fancy Feast. I mean, that's what it is. And I can get you have the menu on page 6 if you want to see the menu. Cat food, which is kind of just.
Oh my God. Is it in French? I hope it's French. Cat gourmet food. Can I have the glasses?
I mean, I'm a dog person, so this wasn't very meaningful.
I think the question came up at the committee meeting was, is it edible by people? Because
Yeah.
there's a whole thing
Right.
about serving food and.
Right,
And
We
people
didn't
were
get it,
wondering,
right.
are they serving the cat food? Are we supposed
No.
to eat the cat food?
Yeah.
it's human food inspired by cat food.
Is there an SNL time?
Aaron, sorry about that. Go ahead.
So during the committee, there was some really good comments brought up about concerns for it wasn't specific to this application, but we've seen a few lately in Madison Square Park and in Bryant Park about gas powered generators. And, there's some technical issues of marketing events are not are actually not allowed or encouraged not to plug into electrical outlets in the park. Sometimes they can't, but actually they actually don't want them to do that. It's sort of on their own to bring in generators. A lot of these generators are gas generators, and I think it's a really good issue. We sort of didn't really have an action, but I thought it was a good comment, and I think it's something we're like watching and sort of looking at in the future, and potentially escalating it to have a larger discussion about that. I think it was a good note. I don't know if that come up in other places, but.
Okay,
May I
great. Thank
address
you,
on
Fred.
that? So yeah, that's a good point. We had this on a previous application in Greeley Square, and in the Greeley Square case, they're thinking about it, but it's a very expensive thing to put in a new power structure in that area. We did put a whereas in that resolution, that was the bouncy house place. On here in line 86 and 87, we did put something in as well, addressing that, asking the applicant, which is Madison Square Park Conservancy, to see if whether future partners can use generators that aren't powered by fossil fuels and less impactful on the environment. So we did put that in the resolution, but to your point, Aaron, we can make that into a broader conversation.
Did you get any feedback from the bid at all?
No, the bid is actually, interestingly enough, and I think is one of the things that they comment on, the bid is in competition with them on these events, and that's why they're having problems.
Oh.
Because they have it in that area, that's the Flatiron bid area. That's why they're having problems with getting marketing events, because the bid is a lot cheaper, their space is a lot cheaper than the Madison Square Park space.
Interesting.
So there is actually, it's a healthy competition. It's not antagonistic, but there is a bit of a competition.
Okay. Any questions? Comments? No? Okay, next one is Bex, I believe. Let's make sure. And let me know if you want to change the order, but Bex should be second.
Thank you, Vicky. We have one resolution. It's the Shed the Shed initiative. That was the Manhattan Borough President introduced a Shed the Shed initiative, and it's a package of sort of 9 bills. They were introduced by our 3 council members, which is Councilmember Powers primarily, Councilmember Botcher, and then Marte. And it's a package of 9 bills, and what they do is they sort of affect the scaffolding around the city, and each bill does a little bit of incremental, has a little bit of incremental impact on the shed. So for intro 971 says that if trees are damaged, for instance, if they're damaged or any trees are removed, then they're going to have to be replaced or repaired or replanted. There's a timeline for the removal of scaffolding if there's no active construction within a certain period of time. If they don't apply to get the repairs in place within a certain period of time, then the city's going to come in and do it and bill the property owner to get it done. They're going to extend the period by which the property owner will have to have the scaffolding inspected if it's a new bill. They're going to make sure that on a street, all the inspections happen simultaneously. They're going to consider a pilot program involving drones for the physical examinations. They're going to establish height and design standards for the scaffolding that is obstructing public amenities like parks and playgrounds. They're going to provide for better lighting under the scaffolding. So they're going to use new LED lighting under the lighting strip for a uniform light level to be present. They're going to require property owners to apply for facade work within 6 months after the scaffolding is erected. If they haven't done so, they're going to be subject to fines. They're also going to introduce a package for people who can't afford, people leave scaffolding up because they can't afford to do the repairs. They're going to introduce packages for those properties so that they can apply for these loans so that the scaffolding can come down. They're also going to look at using nets instead of scaffolds where they can use nets. They're also going to require the Department of Buildings to inspect scaffolding every 6 months and have administrative fees for every 6 months if they leave it up, where they could have afforded to do these repairs and it didn't. They're going to allow for different colors for the scaffolding, and they're going to require them to go higher. So there's all these different requirements. The committee was very supportive of all these packages of bills. It's currently in committee. Everybody was supportive. There's gonna be a lot of more discussion about it. The committee did ask that we consider cameras under the scaffolding as part of this, but in general, everybody said yes, it was unanimous. I do have to say that we need a correction in our attendance. We had 11 in favor. Joseph Stewart and Kim are no longer on the committee, so we have to change that, but so I will make those amendments. But we were 11 unanimous in favor of the shed bills.
Okay. Any questions or comments from anyone? Okay. Then we go to landmarks.
I'm sorry. We had two applications this month. The first one is 900 Broadway. This is at the corner of 20th Street in the Ladies Mile Historic District. The applicant is proposing to actually do an alteration to a master plan. The master plan is for the ground floor retail of the building. They had a master plan approved by the City Planning Commission in by the Landmarks Preservation Commission, sorry. I think like approximately 10 years ago. And basically in the course of taking ownership of the building, they have done a lot of research and a lot of probing, and they actually have found that some existing historic material still exists in the building. So instead of actually going with a master plan that was done, not taking into consideration this historic reality, they're proposing a better master plan. And overall, the quality of the work that they're proposing and the scope of the master plan is much more in keeping with the original building. They've done a lot of probing. They've analyzed original paint color from the era when the building was built. It is a McKee Mead and White design building, and they are reintroducing all these historic elements. We were very pleased with the proposal. We are just making one, so it is an approval. We're just making one consideration about the proportion of the main entryway that is part of these modifications. It's a little bit out of alignment. The applicant was actually very receptive and agreeable. We didn't want, I mean, it really didn't rise to the level of condition. Everything else is really exquisite, and it's a very good proposal, but we just note it in the result so that the commissioners can take note of it.
Okay,
And the vote was unanimous, 12-0-0-0.
okay. Questions or comments? Okay, then we can go to the second
Okay,
resolution.
so the second resolution, 455 Madison Avenue, this is the Lot New York Palace, also known as the Henry Villard houses. This is a individual landmark located at the corner of Madison Avenue, 50th and 51st Streets. A very, very exquisite and rare complex of Italian Renaissance townhouses. The application is actually for a restoration and replacement of the paving at the courtyard. There's also some restorative work at the stairs that actually lead from the courtyard into the buildings. This is restorative in nature and would provide no alterations, but they are proposing a pretty major alteration to the courtyard, where they are proposing a new pattern and design using smaller pavers of granite as well as limestone. Their inspiration is from the great Piazza del Doglio, in Rome. It is a striking design. The committee really had a very robust and really very, very good and sophisticated discussion. In the end, we worked really hard trying to reach consensus and we didn't. 3 members really made the case that this is not appropriate. It's a striking design and they really felt strongly that the design of this area should really defer to the buildings rather than overpower the buildings. And the majority of the committee felt otherwise and felt that actually the design really complemented and supported the buildings. The buildings are so elegant and beautiful that they can actually take a really robust design of the courtyard. The discussion was really sophisticated, really fair, really passionate, and I was actually very pleased that it's one of those rare situations where it's not a unanimous vote. We worked really hard towards reaching a unanimous vote. It just did not happen, but the sophistication of the disagreement was really very, very encouraging. So the vote is 9-3-0-0.
It was difficult.
It was,
Yeah.
and those 3 made a really
They
very
made a
strong and
Very
compelling
good case.
case and compelling points, and yeah, it was a really
Yeah.
sophisticated and educated conversation.
Yeah. I think we gotta get Suzanne on this board full time.
I know, I
It's
agree.
Wonderful.
I
She
agree.
really is. Questions or comments? No? Okay. And then do land use, Leila.
Okay. Land use, that was an application for the certification of an open air cafe. It's a renewal. The location is 1700 Broadway. This is at the corner with 50. Actually, it's not in the resolution, which is a bad big no. Sorry about that. I will rectify that.
Okay, good.
I believe it is 50th Street. So the applicant is the building owner. The operator of the open air cafe is Shake Shack. We had a significant turnout of members of the public who came to testify and raise a number of really serious issues with the way the cafe currently operates. They raise a number of issues that have to do with littering, loitering, loading and unloading from trucks that provide food and other goods to the Shake Shack. And we had what I would qualify as a really very encouraging exchange with the applicant, both the attorney representing the owner of the building, but also the operator for Shake Shack. And we basically said, given what we're hearing, we have to issue a denial. The footprint and the changes that they're proposing is actually not terrible. You can live with what they're asking for. But certainly the operations concerns are just way too great for us to grant an approval to this application. So denial, unless you immediately reach out to the board office, you set up a meeting to the board office with the committee and the members of the community so that we can figure out and put a plan in place. And the great thing with that land use was really at the very beginning of the cycle. So we actually had the luxury, I think, of 3 weeks to set that up. And they were absolutely assuring us that they will be in touch immediately, get in touch with you on Thursday for sure. And then it went crickets until yesterday. So, very obviously, they did reach out to the board office. It looks like there is a meeting that is, being organized. I don't have all the details. But, it really doesn't rise to the requirements of the committee at the time of the committee meeting. And it cannot rise to, although they have, but looked and reset themselves more about, what exactly is happening, when is this meeting happening, who's coming to this meeting, I don't know. But, it is not consistent with the recommendation. So they're going in with a denial and
It was originally a denial.
it was a deny unless
Ah.
they immediately reach out to the board office, set up a meeting And we come up with a concerted plan that will mitigate these concerns for the residents. So they didn't do it, it's very unfortunate. But there's no way that can rise to the level
Yeah,
of an approval.
okay,
So it is going in as a denial.
okay. And that was 8,
That was eight.
Yeah. okay. Any questions or comments from anyone?
So I don't know, Marisa, if you have any updates for us on this meeting, is it happening? Who has been invited?
No, I mean, nobody's been invited. They reached out yesterday. They say they're available to meet tomorrow, but it's a much larger meeting than I had originally thought. So just to gather those people together by tomorrow is not going to happen, so I think it's just not enough time. So we'll set something up, for the coming weeks, as soon as we can, because it's a constituent issue. It has to get solved as
Yeah.
quickly as it can, regardless of the resolution.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna happen this week.
Yeah, and it's on them. It's really on them, and members of the committee did reach out to them, reach out to the attorney who said, you need to talk to Shake Shack, they're not my client, I represent the building, I don't work with Shake Shack. So, it's unfortunate, it's disappointing.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
It's disappointing. So we had 2 other items that were discussed at the committee. One is the address is 8th Avenue and 47th Street. I don't have the exact address from the top of my head. This is an issue that we actually took up because the developer is currently constructing a building that is going to be a hotel, and he has obtained a building permit, but this hotel is actually going to have a amusement ride at the top, where basically people get onto this sort of like contraption, and then they get dropped, and for like 300 foot drop. So that qualifies as amusement park type of use, and this use is actually not permitted in certainly not in at this particular site. I think it's actually not permitted in Manhattan at all. So there is currently a challenge to the issuance of this construction permit by DOB. But separate of this challenge, the committee, the land use committee, decided to actually take up the matter and look at whether this permit was issued in compliance with zoning. And the explanation for the issuance of the permit is that the applicant made the case that an amusement park is an accessory use to a hotel. So an accessory use means that it is a use that is not permitted, but it is deemed accessory. So for example, in the Upper East Side, you cannot open a restaurant. I know there are plenty of restaurants on the Upper East Side and they're all grandfathered, but if you were to rent a new space that doesn't have a restaurant, you cannot put a restaurant. But if you build a brand new hotel on the Upper East Side, you can have a restaurant because it is accessory use to the hotel. Basically, yes, you need to feed your guests, and so in this particular instance, the applicant developer is making the case that amusement park type use is accessory to a hotel in Las Vegas, in some part of Milwaukee, and in Macau. Which basically is entirely correct, but as far as we know, we don't go by the Macau zoning resolution or Milwaukee, somewhere wherever it is. So we felt that given that really that there is no precedent in the city, and the applicant tried to make the case that yes, there was a Ferris wheel in Times Square, but it was actually in the street. The street is not subject to the zoning resolution, and there was a Ferris wheel in Toys R Us, but they actually never got a permanent certificate of occupancy, which was actually the very reason why, because it's not a permitted use. So, you know, we went on and on and on, and, you know, the attorney for,
tried and tried.
so in the end, we raised, and the reason why we really wanted to bring this up is that it creates a very troubling precedent, because casinos that are, you know, very often associated with hotels are not permitted in New York City. And we certainly don't want DOB all of a sudden to issuing permits for casinos, because they would be deemed as an accessory use to a hotel. So for all these reasons, and also because this is really an egregious way of, you know, like going around the zoning resolution, we felt it was important. So we decided to actually write a letter to the Department of Buildings. So it's not a resolution, which is why it's not an action.
Okay. Did the letter go out?
I don't think so, not yet. I think we're still putting the final touches to it, right, Aaron?
Yeah, it has not gone out yet. You have a revision to review, yeah.
And you'll report on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the third item that we reviewed was also an item that we brought in. The address is 262 Fifth Avenue. This is actually an application. This is a site that we reviewed, for which we reviewed an application for additional parking, and we actually denied the additional parking. But in the course of the review of the additional parking, we found that this building is going to be, you know, I mean, it depends on the reporting, but could be as tall as 1,000 feet, and is going to have 26 housing units, ranging from duplexes to quadruplexes. We felt that it was important for us to understand why that kind of construction was able to actually go up. If there is use of mechanical voids, if there is use of any other mechanisms that, you know, basically create these buildings that are so incredibly inefficient at providing housing. And so gluttonous of resources. We felt that it was not right for us to make a recommendation. We feel that the recommendation will be some sort of, probably a legislative recommendation that, you know, the tools don't exist in the zoning resolution toolbox, and they should be introduced, whether it is a zoning text amendment or legislation that is undertaken by the council. You know, that remains to be seen, but we need to work more on that so that we can actually recommend a position.
So how is it left with the committee?
We left it that we're going to continue working on
On
it.
it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, thanks, Leila. Next up, SLAP.
SLAP had two resolutions this month. Both of the applications were cannabis applications. The first one was at 182 Fifth Avenue, which is between 22nd and 23rd Streets, right across the street from the Flatiron Pedestrian Plazas and Madison Square Park. We found the applicant to be professional, responsive to community concerns, with reasonable hours of operation. But our guidelines require at least 500 feet from a public space like a pedestrian plaza or a park. And this location is only 392 feet from Madison Square Park and only 225 feet from the Flatiron pedestrian plazas. So pursuant to our guidelines, we recommended denial of that one. Similarly, the second application was at 958 Sixth Avenue, which is the corner of 35th Street. Again, we found the applicant to be professional, responsive to community concerns. In fact, their initial application requested operating hours until 2 a.m., but based on comments from the committee and the public, they agreed to modify those to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. But again, the location is only 74 feet from Herald Square Park. So again, on that basis, the committee recommended denial.
Any questions or comments? I don't understand what we're gonna do with this dormitory authority doing what they're doing. Are we right?
Well, we have, I mean, the problem is that these locations have been selected, you know, a long time ago. Before the, you know, the regulations came to us, before we commented on the regulations, before we had our guidelines and before we started issuing these resolutions. Maybe the process will catch up, maybe it won't, I don't know.
I have a feeling we're gonna be denying for a while because of location. They want it right in the middle of everything. Which is understandable, but they don't take anything into account, including the guidelines from the state liquor authority, which you would think they might try to follow, but they didn't.
No, the Office of Cannabis Management is, you know, really making their own way.
Yeah.
There was some discussion at the committee meeting that if enforcement did improve such that there wouldn't be concern about people purchasing cannabis at these locations and using it in public parks, then maybe at that point we would reconsider our guidelines. But given the state of affairs now, the public spoke very strongly, you know, in support of our guidelines, which require some distance from public spaces.
Yeah. I give a lot of credit to the committee. I mean, they really hold them tight to their guidelines, which is great. Okay,
My first meeting in 10 years that I was not on your committee.
I know, we had a moment of
Decade.
silence.
A
for
full decade
absence.
on your committee.
I'm sorry, I keep guilty.
what happened?
I stole him from Nick.
I said it's the first committee meeting in 10 years that I'm not on the committee.
Oh.
Sorry.
No, look at him.
No, you're not.
I'm not actually.
Address your sorries to the chair, please.
Very good, EJ. Touche.
Do we ever do new business or it's not
We
appropriate?
still have transportation and
Oh, I thought we did that.
environment.
I know.
Well, I already spoke to the three,
Yeah.
residents.
Oh, right, what am I saying? I'm looking at it on here. Okay, they're done, yes.
I had sent an email about the pickleball situation in Union Square. And they've taken over the entire parking lot every Thursday, and I don't recall this at all.
It didn't go through us. It didn't go
Well,
through us.
I just think that it's a major thing, and it's just they acted in bad faith. And it's
Yeah.
a major inconvenience for thousands of people who transverse that. Sorry, talking to you.
No, that's okay.
I think I CC'd you on it.
Yeah. I don't know, have you been reading all of the reports? I'll just quickly say this about the lawsuits that are coming out about residents around pickleball courts and how they really feel that it's, what's the word they're using, mentally, I mean, it really is,
Metastasizing.
yeah. It's making people crazy. It's constant. It's not like tennis,
It's also just,
well, the
I
actual,
feel like it was intentionally left off because it is so triggering.
Yeah.
And it is such a major taking of public space that they didn't even include it in their presentation to
how come
us.
it doesn't come to us?
It
You said
should,
it didn't
that's my
come?
point.
It didn't go through us, no.
Where is it?
And Union
I can
Square.
call a bet tomorrow.
You said in a cut?
Maybe we should check. up
Well,
on
there's where the vast farmer's market is. They've taken almost that entire space over.
it. And it's all the time?
It's every Thursday.
It's 1 day a week.
I wonder.
I'll call a
Yeah, I
bet
might
tomorrow.
want to check
I'll
it
bet
out.
tomorrow.
Okay, anything else? Do we have anyone online?
We can have 2 people online, 2 attendees.
Okay, if anyone from the public would like to address this committee, raise your hand. Anything, Marisa?
No, if you'd like, you can raise your hand, make a comment or ask a question. Go ahead, here, you raise your hand.
I think she's talking to
To
them.
them, okay.
There's nothing.
No? Okay. Anyone has anything else? Okay, let's hope we have a quorum for Thursday. Mary has sent out a APD asking for. So you need to know, ASAP, and I'm gonna say this, because Marisa and I discussed it this morning. and If we don't have a quorum, there's no reason to pull everyone together to come in person, and we'll have a virtual and let them complain about it. How's that? Is everyone in agreement? Yes.
Makes sense.
It does. Why do we need to have everybody schlep there if they're not gonna be able to? It's not gonna count.
What time will you call
Town hall.
Will you call that?
Thursday morning? Or does everyone?
Wait, what is, I'm sorry, what is,
Go ahead.
sorry, what is your suggestion again? Is your suggestion to
If
have
we
it
don't have a
virtual
quorum,
and vote? And then take votes?
yeah,
The only question I have on that is that setting for the rest of the board a bad precedent? That if all of us don't show up, the executive committee or Vicky's, just the chair is just gonna,
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't,
Layla's saying no, Nick is
you know, I'm
saying
just
yes.
thinking like,
Layla,
No, I think that, given the circumstances, it is brand new. We were given literally no notice that the executive order was going to expire. We had to adjust very swiftly and very quickly, and, it takes time to get a group of 50 people to adjust to a new MO. So, no, I don't, I think that those are really, external that are caused not by us, but by the fact that you're given no advance notice and no guidance on how to plan for that.
go ahead, Greg, and then
we,
I'll-
that's not, I don't completely agree with that because. We were given advance notice and we were given it because all of our committee meetings over the past 3 weeks. Have been in person. I know people were on the screen, but we've known for at least 3 or 4 weeks, I think. I won't, since the emergency order, 3 weeks.
Yeah, June 20 was.
Right.
the,
June 20.
So we've known
right.
3 weeks and we've had enough, all of our committee meetings. So I take your point, Layla, but I don't know that I agree with, we had no notice. We've had 3 weeks' notice. Again, we can do whatever we want. I'm okay with having it virtual,
I
but just set
wouldn't
a
say
precedent.
we do this on a regular basis, but it's July. And a lot of people may have made summer plans, maybe. I think it kind of fits in with. With. I don't know. DJ, let's hear from you guys.
Well, no, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand. According to the state's quorum rules,
Yeah. you
are any
have
of our
to
votes
do
gonna
it.
count?
Right,
Say that again.
Our votes won't count, like
Well, let them tell us that, because we won't have a vote if we don't have a quorum. So let's meet virtually, let's take a vote and let's see what they say. If anyone, maybe people won't challenge it.
I guess
And the
I see your
other
point,
thing is-
since the vote won't count either way.
Well,
Like, if we
Uh,
gathered in person but don't have a quorum, the vote doesn't count. If we meet virtually, the vote. doesn't
well,
count.
we don't know that.
I mean, Vicky's point is if we travel, what's the point of everybody schlepping?
Exactly.
If in fact, it's not going to count, it may not count. I mean, it's definitely not gonna count if we schlep,
Right.
but if we're virtual, it may count.
Right.
Because we may
Someone
get
has
everybody,
to-
right?
Someone has
Perhaps.
to oppose it. Someone has to write in and say, I'm sorry, you didn't do it the way you should have done it. Well, let's let them do it. Maybe they won't. And furthermore, and then I want you to say something too, Marisa, but we're gonna have a lot of problems with hybrid meetings. I mean, look at the discussion we had earlier. It may be where after 3 or 4 months with some real problems, we collectively, maybe with other boards, will petition the state to do something about this. The open meetings law, the committee on open, I don't know, but my feeling is for Thursday night, and I'm really saying this for again, it's summer. It's July, people are away. Why have the people that are going to come waste their time coming to a meeting for no real reason. Craig,
Yeah, I agree with you, and I also think there are problems with it. However, just to play devil's advocate.
there are problems, I'll say that.
Yeah.
Right.
But to play devil's advocate, not saying I think this is the approach we should take, but someone can come back to you and say. Tammy is Board One.
Yeah,
Board One has been doing in-person meetings. I
yeah, they
believe,
have, they don't do.
For a year, and they've managed it. I'm not saying I agree with that
Yeah.
position. I'm not saying I want that, I want that, but what I'm saying is. Taking the opposite side, someone can throw that back in our
Yeah.
faces. Just people should be cautious.
Larissa, did you want to say something then, Nick?
No, I mean, I was really just gonna clarify that, yes, none of the votes legally count.
Right.
Whether you would be, if you don't have quorum, whether you would be in
Right.
person or whether you go on Zoom. Now, it's complaint driven. I can really only imagine potentially an applicant complaining
Right.
about one of the votes.
Who else is
If the
gonna
vote is
complain?
particularly controversial or not.
Yeah.
But otherwise, this is really complaint driven. The agencies won't question the resolution unless it's challenged somehow.
I think that's the point. The key point for me is that, you know, if we know we're not gonna have a quorum at the in-person meeting, then I think that
Why? It
Yeah.
makes sense.
that makes me feel better.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Mary,
We've got 23 yeses in person so far. So
okay, how
we
many
need
do
two
we
more.
need? Two more?
Yes,
Oh, wait, we are at 50,
No, not a 50.
we're not at 50. There's some confusion. Somebody named Akor Dalal
Yeah.
emailed me. And this is the first time I've heard.
Is
from
he
you.
coming?
Yes, he is. So,
we'll take
He
it.
doesn't know. He's not on the board.
well, he says that he was newly appointed.
Yeah, he
That's why I
was.
wanted to break, that's why it's thrown us into confusion.
Yeah. So we have 23 now and we need
Yes.
26.
Well, we had 46 total before. If he is on, then it's 47.
47 divided by 2 is
So we
20,
need-
23 and a half.
Yep.
So,
I think so we need 25. Is that right?
Yeah, we need to.
Yes.
24.
Oh,
well, I think it depends how you calculate. What is
does it have?
50% plus 1
yeah.
from 23 and a half?
Yeah,
It is one more than the majority. Then
then half.
I will, I
Or
will
more than half.
just say that I did not take Joseph Brewer off this list, so it would be 46 total.
Okay,
So we
so
24.
that's 24.
Yes,
And we
So
have
what do you
23.
and we have 23.
Well,
Do we have a lot of
sorry,
yeses? Do we have a lot of no's?
and how many are
We have a lot of no's.
outstanding?
Sir,
Do we have a lot of, sorry, do we have a lot of
just a couple,
A lot of
Okay,
what?
no's.
just a couple
That
no's
was my.
and one Zoom, yes.
Oh, we may get it.
Yeah, I have a feeling we will.
Okay, yeah, because it's now what, Tuesday? Yeah, I think we will. Okay, all right, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. See you Thursday.